Hey everybody, before we get started, just a reminder this episode is brought to you by our patrons like Ahagao Comics, Qua, Dragon66, and Nestor Flores. If you like what we do and want to see us do more, consider supporting us on Patreon. You get access to episodes early and lots of other goodies, and it'll really help us out. Thanks for your support, everybody. Hey, hi, welcome back to the channel. So, today, gonna do something different, gonna do something a little experimental. You've probably heard me, if you're a long-time listener to the channel and listen to some of our other stuff, you've probably heard me, A, talk at length about Star Wars X-Wing and Legion on various videos on the channel, and B, you've probably heard me ranting and raving about how much I love the new Legend of the Five Rings RPG by Fantasy Flight. I love a lot of their fiction. I've really enjoyed reading the book, especially since they released a PDF. Thanks, guys! And, so I want to do more L5R type content on the channel, but I'm not, super into the card game yet. I couldn't do, articles on previews and prizes and stuff, other than maybe some meta commentary on story choices. Let me know if you want me to do stuff like that, because I could totally bust out analysis and reviews of new fiction and stuff, if you want. But anyway, so we're going to start off trying to do some L5R type videos by creating a character. We're going to walk through the 20 questions today, and I'm going to create a character, and you're going to listen to me create a character. And at the end, a character will be created. That's basically it. It's good. It's fun. So, that's about it. Also, shout out to Lucky for providing me with the image I've used for this intro. That's all him. Thanks, buddy. Keep supporting the industry. Other than that, yeah. So we'll walk through kind of some stuff, and we'll do some setup and stuff. This is just the intro. All right. Let's go ahead and start moving through the steps and kind of talk about the process. So before we get started with the actual setup, let's run through some introductory level stuff. Now, I'm going to work on an actual sheet here that I've made for myself in Google Docs, because I run a lot of online games, with people who you might know from the channel. Check out our actual play series. You don't have any L5R, but we got other stuff. Hey, hi, hello. But yeah, so we do a lot of online play. So obviously the ability to make editable and shareable documents is way easier for us. You could do some form fillable updates and stuff. And in fact, the book straight up recommends you go to their website to get character sheets and 20 questions worksheets. But I'll be working from this. I will link you guys in the description the finished character sheet. Don't look at it yet. Don't look at it yet. It's not done. I haven't worked through it. So there's that. So we'll have to run through a couple of introductory assumptions. I'm going to spoil some things now. For sure, this character will be a Kitsuki. And they will be male. I'm totally not just making myself insert as a samurai detective. No. It's actually a little bit different for me. Most of the characters I've made to just get a feel for the system and the different types of characters. And, a lot of the different schools and their kind of ups and downs have been female, but I figured I'd save, the character I really would want to play in a game for this little discussion. So there's that. So if you hear me referring to the character as he or Kitsuki for a while, because interestingly enough, despite the fact that usually in my writing, I write the character's name first, just so I have something to consistently refer to them while I develop them, you don't actually pick your character's personal name until, the last question, or second to last, technically. We'll get there. We'll get through all that. So, for now, they're a Kitsuki, and they are male. The other thing we need to do is talk about the basic starting stuff before we even answer any questions. Every character starts with a value of 1 in each ring. You start with your skills at rank 0. And remember, you can't increase a ring above 3 or a skill above 3 in character creation. This is important if you're doing a lot of your focus stuff. And kind of at the end of the school steps, once we've sorted out all the rings, we'll answer a question there, and we will calculate the character's endurance, composure, focus, and vigilance. But you calculate endurance based on earth plus fire times 2, composure is earth plus water times 2, focus is fire and air, and then vigilance is air plus water divided by 2. So basically the average of your air and water. All right. So with all of our intro level stuff, let's jump into the 20 questions. All right. So first off, question number 1 in the first part, which is your core identity. We will define our character in general terms, as the book says. And the first question is, what clan does your character belong to? So it talks about the 7 great clans, and also there's some minor clans you can go for. And kind of, do that stuff back and forth. So obviously, because I know I want to pick a specific family, I obviously know what specific clan I want to pick. And this is a very important, part of your question, is picking what great clan or minor clan, philosophy and kind of region and other things you want to work with. And I always really like the Dragon Clan. who are the great clan associated with the Kitsuki family. But I always really like them because of their kind of philosophical and individualist kind of bent. Like, a lot of Rokugan is very strict social structures, strict social roles, right? Like, you are not an individual person. You are a member of a class whose name literally translates to those who serve. So you follow a certain type of service. But the Dragon are all about this kind of, like, diversity, right? Like, you must find your own individual path to enlightenment. You got to find your own way to exist. And that's kind of let a couple of their families do some interesting things. So we're going to pick the Dragon Clan. And what that means is, obviously, this will influence the character's outlook. You have a lot of general awareness of the Dragon Clan and some other stuff that they talk about in the little lovely sidebars about what does your characters know and what does Bushido mean to them. Pro tip, dragons are all about sincerity, but also they have this interesting aspect about how they view loyalty. I tried to say duty and loyalty at the same time. I'm sorry. So that's really interesting kind of stuff. So we know we're from the north, we're from the rugged, mountainous areas. Probably, a little more down to earth and gritty than other ones. But most importantly, there's some statistical modifiers that we're going to apply right now, thanks to being Dragon Clan, which is also one of the other reasons why I really like Dragon, which is you get a ring increase, and we're going to put a +1 to fire, because fire is cool. Also, this means that, this character probably has a more creative, inventive, driven lifestyle than lots of others. That's what being part of the Dragon Clan entails. All right? Okie dokie. So, the other thing we get is we get a free skill, and everybody gets a point of meditation, which is also fun. Meditation is a skill used for initiative in certain places, and also just kind of self-reflection, mental defenses, stuff like that. And also, we set our starting status, a very normal 30. So, I believe it's 4 out of the 7 great clans have a 30, and the other 3 have 35, and those are all the ones that are close to the Emperor. Alright, everybody got that? Okay. So with our ring, skill, and status increase, and our kind of, we've walked it through, yeah, we like the Dragon Clan, we want to do some stuff with their kind of interesting ways. We've answered this question. We're a Dragon Clan, and that's that. So now, obviously, with clan picked, question 2 is very simply put, what family did you belong to? So every family kind of has their own quirks and customs and roles within the Great Clan. So obviously, as I said at the outro, or the intro rather, because the outro is at the end. But at the outset, I said that this would be a Kitsuki family member. So this is Kitsuki something. And the Kitsuki family is, a fairly well-known Dragon Clan family. They're a little small, like a lot of Dragon Clan families, but they have they're well known for keen perception and investigative methods and a lot of attention to detail. And they are one of the primary courtier families of the Dragon. And I could read out their little description here, but I won't because that could be bad. Anyway, read the book. Buy the PDF. So, this is a very simple section. Family gives you another ring increase option and some skill increases. So, for ring, I picked water because water is the ring and element kind of associated with flexibility, with awareness. So that'd be pretty good for a Kitsuki family member and the character I'm trying to build. So we're going to go with water, round out some stuff. And you get 2 skill increases. We get +1 government and +1 sentiment. So government is the scholarly skill to know about law, bureaucracy, history kind of stuff. Like, what's the procedure of Rokugan? So obviously that's going to be useful later. And then also, sentiment is the scholarly skill to understand people, like behaviors and analysis and stuff like that. Really good for these kinds of investigatory courtiers. We also get our starting glory, which is a very normal 45. You're okayly known. Nice smack in the middle. And a starting wealth of 6 koku, which probably won't come into play. I don't usually, when making these characters, spend my money right away to get extra stuff, but there you go. You're at a nice middle of the road. And actually, for the Dragon, they're the most wealthy. But yeah, so we've kind of walked through that, so let's move into the third question. Now we're going to start getting a little more detail intense. Alright, so next we move to question 3, and this is the part 2, role in school. So, step 1, question 3. What is your character's school, and what roles does that school fall into? So, it's pretty obvious, but I'm playing a Kitsuki, playing a Dragon Clan. Hopefully you guys know me from the channel, but gonna play a Kitsuki investigator, or I'm gonna make one anyway. Don't know if I'll ever play this character. So, Kitsuki investigator school. So first off, they are tagged to both courtier and bushi, and this actually makes sense. So primarily the Kitsukis are courtiers, but because of their obsession with this tricky thing called evidence, as opposed to just believing the testimony of the highest-ranking samurai present, this means they often have to back up a lot of their assertions with the ability to duel, because, hey, guess what? If you said the city governor did it, not that scruffy-looking Ronin, somebody's probably going to challenge you to a duel, and then you got to be like, I'll defend my assertion. So, they have Bushi tagged in there, and they can get kata and rituals and shuji available as their techniques. So, you get a lot of things when you pick your school. This really sets out your character. So you get 2 ring increases, so we get +1 air and +1 earth. So we are now a very well-rounded character, you know. We've got 2 out of 3 in 4 out of the 5 rings. And I could, if I wanted to in the next step, up void. We'll see about that when we talk through that step. You also get to pick 5 starting skills out of a handful. So what I went through for this character is I picked mostly skills I didn't have yet. So I picked culture, which is the understanding, like, the cultural history, like what people say happened, people's heraldry and lineage, certain forms of formal etiquette and stuff. I picked up martial arts melee because, you know, I got a Bushi tag in there. I want to be able to fight. I got some melee weapons. I picked medicine because that's very important for an investigator to be able to go, that guy was poisoned, or, oh, this stab wound is clearly post-mortem. Hey, guess what? I've got a criminal justice degree. That's why I'm rolling a Kitsuki investigator. Anyway. And then, so that's 3 out of your 5. Also, I picked survival. I could have picked skullduggery, but I figured survival, especially with the way the Dragon Clan is described, makes more sense, right? So survival, you know, can live out in the woods, can prep food, can understand some things about wild plants, and maybe, you know, you can find stuff that's poison. You'll be like, ooh, there's a clue. And then with the exception of skullduggery, I have all the remaining skills that you can pick, so I decided to double down and go to 2 government, which means that this character has for a starting character, has a very strong understanding of law and legal proceedings. We start with 45 honor. That's a pretty middle-of-the-road honor sense, you know, not super low, but not super high. You get to pick 1 starting kata, and you can get striking as air tactical assessment. Striking at air is not super great, and tactical assessment is a special access. It's got a little diamond mark, so you know that this is a specific access you get to. So, yeah, no, we're going there. We're going to do that one. And also tactical assessment's really cool, because it lets you figure out stuff about the battlefield. And then you automatically get the Shuji Shallow Waters. The Kitsuki investigators also get their special school ability, Kitsuki's Method, when performing a check to investigate, which is a special thing in the 5th edition of L5R. You may treat your ranks in that skill you are using as equal to your school rank if your ranks in the skill are equal or higher. You add a kept die set to an opportunity instead. So basically, if you're investigating something you're not skilled in, because normally you have to be skilled in something to investigate, you can treat it as if you have your school rank. So I always have at least a 5, or a 1 rather, in whatever skill I want. If I'm investigating, like, somebody, would roll composition to investigate, like, make a handwriting match based on a letter or a poem that was written anonymously, boom, got a rank in it, even though I have no artisan skills right now, and probably won't pick them up. You never know, but probably not. Alright, you got that? And then for stuff I am good at, like government, sentiment, medicine, I get a free opportunity which can be spent to get, you know, more clarifying questions and stuff. So that's cool. The Kitsuki are really good at this, in case you can't tell. And then lastly, we get my starting outfit. You get traveling clothes, you get a wakizashi, that's pretty standard. You get a knife, you get a calligraphy set, you can get a bow or a jan. I think I'm going to go with the jan because of swords. Though I might pick up a katana later, so I could take the bow instead. We'll see. Maybe we'll leave that question to be answered to later. You get a traveling pack, and you get a journal full of observations, which is cool. Lots of these schools have little extra starting kit stuff, like the Agasha have, like, a collection of glass vials, and obviously the Kitsuki's got, like, a little journal. Some guys get ponies. Unicorns get unicorn warhorses, etc., etc. Lots of fun stuff. So we've kind of run through our school. We've explained our roles and kind of all of our options. So hopefully you got a good idea of Kitsuki. He's good at what he does, and what he does is investigate. So let's move into question 4. So that was a pretty long question we walked through. Now let's walk through a much shorter question, which is question 4, which is basically how did your character stand out within their school? So even in a dojo, everybody's got their own kind of quirks, personality aspects which shine through and kind of, help define who they are and what people think of them. So, and basically it's just you get another ring increase mechanically, but you kind of have to explain how they are. And I do think for the sake of making this, I like the idea of this Kitsuki being very well-rounded, having 2 in every ring. So let's say that they stood out in their school with self-awareness, insight, or mysticism, right? That's +1 void. So they've got 2 in everything right now. And basically, it kind of fits. While the Kitsuki are very focused on the physical, perhaps our young Kitsuki, had a certain amount of self-awareness and understanding of the wider universe, some meditation on some topics and kind of figuring out how the spiritual and the physical connect, man. And so with that done, we will say that that's our final void ring. So we will very quickly calculate up our derived stats at this step. So endurance is earth plus fire times 2, so we got 2 in that, so hey, that's an 8. And guess what? We got 2s in both earth and water for composure, so that's also 8. So that's not super high, but not super low either, because obviously you can come out of this with a 4 in some of those. Focus is air plus fire, so that's 4. Vigilance is 2, that could be higher, but that's not necessarily how, stuff shook out. And void is half your void, round up, so 1 void point. Alright. So we're done with that, and let's move into the next part, which is also another very interesting part to talk about. So now we enter part 3, Honor and Glory, and we answer the first question in this section, number 5. Who's your lord, and what does your character's duty to them? So now we're going to get much more role-playing heavy. Okay, so there were some aspects of the first, 4 questions that were about your character's kind of general outlook and background, but now we're getting into much more who is your character, what do they do kind of stuff. What do they actually do? What do all these skills they have are used for? So I'm thinking for this character, you're a Kitsuki investigator, and this is an L5R game. So the thing I think we're going to go for here is we're going to say that this character is a Yoriki, kind of a retainer or adjutant, to a magistrate, and we can even go so far as to say specifically an Emerald Magistrate, right? It's a very classic setup for L5R campaigns because it allows a lot of flexibility. But it also really makes sense for this character, right? He's pretty bright and upcoming, got a certain spiritual sense, really good at understanding the letter of the law and how it applies and all that stuff. Very solid, well-rounded guy, our Kitsuki. So we'll say he is a magistrate. It's Yoriki, right? And we will name that guy and we will say I thought maybe this guy would be a Kitsuki, but let's not make this too confusing. Let's say it's a Mirumoto, and he's Mirumoto Kichiro, and he is our lord. And so that's our relationship with him, right? He's an Emerald Magistrate, whereas Yoriki, we're probably working to become an Emerald Magistrate someday, or maybe just a generic, but highly placed, of course, magistrate to the Dragon Clan, just, a local magistrate. We're really keen on this investigation aspect. And so from there, we got to come up with our Giri, our duty. What is the actual letter of what we're supposed to do for our lord? And so I've decided that the Giri will be serve the Emperor's justice. I like this Giri a lot because, first of all, serve is a great word in this case, this context. Because you could apply it 2 ways. One is to serve the Emperor's justice as to serve it out. Serve it up to people, dish it out. But also serve as in submit. So it's got a great kind of built-in dual application. So it can be applied a couple different places. And then obviously, however we come to Ninja, then there's the problem of the fact that the Emperor's justice is a very specific thing, right? So that gives you that classic conflict, right? And we'll develop that more when we get into Ninja. So that's our Giri and that's our lord. We're working for Mirumoto, Emerald Magistrate, and we're here to serve the Emperor's justice. Jolly good. And so now we are at question 6, which is, what does your character long for and how might this impede their duty? So basically, you're still human beings, right? You still have a human desire. That's ninja. And that's basically whatever non-honor machine thing you want to do is with your life, okay? And obviously you should assemble them so that most of the time you have to find a balancing point between your Giri, your duty, and your ninja, your desire. So in this case, this is pretty simple. I had this idea coming through. So I think Kitsuki here, Kitsuki-san, his ninja is to seek the truth. Because, let's be real, Rokugan is a land of polite fictions. There are a lot of cases where something that is false or incorrect or, at the very least, not the pure and honest truth is expressed to keep things going and keep things normal. And most certainly that has got to be some aspects of the Emperor's justice. But our Kitsuki, in his heart, he really wants to find out what's really going on. What's the real truth? He doesn't necessarily want to reveal the truth. He wants to seek the truth. He wants to find it out. And that means that there are going to be times when, to serve the Emperor's justice, he should be doing something political or something, not 100% on the level or like accurate because it's more honorable or more socially acceptable or whatever. And he's going to be like, but I want to know the truth. And so you could even like seek to damage your reputation or your honor by deliberately seeking the truth, or you can make a big sacrifice for honor or duty, or your station by being like, no, you know what? I want to know the truth, but I'm not gonna. So we're gonna leave it alone, and we're gonna do what's supposed to happen. So there you go. There's Ninja, seek the truth. Heavily influenced by, of course, Persona 4 right there. But yeah, no, this I think works for this character, right? Because obviously they're investigatory, and maybe sometimes they're a little too investigatory. You never know who the truth could hurt. All right, so now we're talking about question 7, which is, what is your character's relationship with their clan? Now, as much as I would love to go on a limb and get an extra skill point, which is what one of the 2 mechanical options is, I can't really justify that, I don't think. So, at this point, you got to ask yourself the question, are you in line with your clan's goals? Because a lot of their clans have different philosophies and stuff, and different aspects, and not everybody works out, The Crane or the Phoenix are often more social, more passive, but maybe you're militaristic for them. Those are one of the examples out of the book. Maybe you're a lion or a crab and you don't like fighting. Maybe there are errors in your judgment. Honestly, I don't think this character has that. Like, obviously, without additional XP, you're usually playing a pretty young character, so I feel like there's a little bit of naivete to Kitsuki-san right now. And maybe we'll develop some of that out as we get to other stuff. But at this point, yeah, I feel like, no, he's fairly orthodox, but because they're the dragon, their kind of orthodoxy is unorthodox, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of individual desire and sincerity in there, but he's really bought into what the dragon's kind of outlook on life is. And maybe that could change over time, but at the moment, I think Kitsuki is fairly in line with the dragon-style beliefs, which is really easy to pull off. So, mechanically, what that means is we get 5 more glory, so our glory goes up to 49. A very awkward number, FFG. I really wish it wasn't plus 5 glory, because lots of people have glory 44, and so you end up with 49 glory a lot of the time. It befuddles me. But anyway, there's not much else to talk about here. This character is pretty in line with the fact that the dragon are pretty open-ended. So question 8 is, what does your character think of Bushido? Here's another big, I think, coloring question on the character, right? So everybody's supposed to respect Bushido, everybody's supposed to follow Bushido, but some families and some clans even pay more respect to some tenets than others. Like we said earlier, the dragon focus a lot on sincerity, living your life in a certain honest and truthful manner, truth to self and truth to the world kind of thing. Not necessarily like honesty, because you're supposed to have tact too, but like genuine thinking and acting, right? Your thoughts should match your actions. And then they don't necessarily pay a super high attention to like loyalty and duty. They're like, if you just obey without question, that's not really being loyal, right? You got to like look at things differently. So I think that Kitsuki does follow that belief in Bushido fairly off the cuff. But I also think that because as an investigator, Kitsuki-san has to look at a lot of people who say they follow Bushido, but are they really acting honorably or with courtesy or compassion, Right? Like, as you're a key to an Emerald Magistrate, you're possibly traveling all over the Empire to look at different crimes, which are cross-clan borders, which have to do with the Empire, the Emperor's justice and stuff like that. So, there's a lot of options here, and so I think that this has kind of colored Kitsuki's view, and he's like, Bushido is good, and it's a good ideal that we should all strive for, but in practice, people don't always follow the strictures of Bushido as much as they should, and honestly, like, you really can't. It's kind of supposed to be like an ideal you should strive for, but you don't always hit, right? But still, there's a certain amount of like cynicism or like acceptance that, yeah, we know, we understand what's up here, right? And so to reflect that, I won't be taking the honor bonus, because 45 is honorable enough. We're nice in the middle, smack middle of honor. But instead, I will be taking a point of commerce, which is a trade skill, sometimes a low skill, because Kitsuki kind of got onto the fact, even though he's young, that money and physical wealth, that's actually kind of important in life. Like, as much as samurai like to rub it off as an evil thing, no, it actually matters, and it's a very big deal to people. So in his very cynical, non-idealized view of Bushido, he's like, no, understanding money is important. So he's picked up a few tricks about, trading, buying, selling, and kind of like purely to investigate, of course, but that would be considered unbecoming of someone of his station, maybe, by a lot more purely honorable or orthodox samurai. So for the sake of like brevity and editing, I've clumped all these together, but we'll go through them all in order. But this is we're starting part 4, strengths and weaknesses. And when I developed like a lot of test characters, like I said, to kind of figure out the system and get the ins and outs, I definitely hit a lot of these in like all at once in order, and sometimes even out of order. Because after all, when you're doing advantages, they're both distinctions and passions are right there. Anyway, so the graphic won't change, but we'll hit these in order, right? So, number 1, what's your character's greatest accomplishment so far? Well, number 9, technically, but you know what I mean. So, this is kind of like, what's your character done in life that people acknowledge and appreciate? Did they win a tournament? Did they create a work of art? They, do something else important? You've got some kind of innate ability or some kind of innate structure. Well, I have made I've made custom advantages and disadvantages before. Let's not get into that right now. So, first off, we're gonna figure out what did you do that's your greatest accomplishment. And a lot of these are very complex, very interesting. Lots of cool, fun stuff I could do here. What I'm thinking though is the obvious is one of the keens, because that seems pretty good for a Kitsuki type. And I think it's going to go, especially with the water aspect. So I think we're going to go with the advantage we pick is going to be keen sight, which lets you have additional like details and stuff. I know that's pretty vanilla, but hey, it's the character. It fits them. And I think we'll say that what their most important detail they hit was that Kitsuki-san noticed an important clue in an investigation that, he noticed that one piece of evidence that makes or breaks the case and, brought it to his lord. And so obviously, while, the actual Emerald Magistrate gets all the credit and the authority, everybody knows that, it was this young and upcoming Kitsuki who found that vital piece of information by sight. He perceived something. And depending on what you're doing in the campaign, you might want to go into more detail than that. Obviously, I'm doing a thing that's going on a channel and I'm recording it right now, so I got a lot of work to do, right, to get all this done, to talk this out with you, so I'm not going to linger too much on the fine details. What matters is that Kitsuki-san has very keen eyes, and people know this about him, and he's known for it, and it's got him things in life. All right? Now, next up, we're going to talk about what holds the character most back in life. So we're going to scroll on down in the PDF to adversities. So this is kind of like, all right, what holds you back? What hurts you? What's your problem in life or in the world? Kind of like unsettles you. What holds you back? What gives you problems? So there's a lot of these that can be in, enemies, certain types of taint, rumors and stuff that follow them. I think what makes the most interesting point for this character, that kind of holds them back, is that kind of defines this character as a negative, I want to say, is Momoko, which is a void disadvantage. avoid adversity, which means you do not sense supernatural presences. So I think, despite the fact that, like we said earlier, like Kitsuki has a certain view and he's like, oh, the spiritual and the physical is connected and stuff. I kind of like the irony that he's just completely oblivious to supernatural stuff going on. Just ghosts? Listen, I can't Sherlock a ghost, okay? That kind of stuff. So that the fact that he cannot recognize as many of these like supernatural phenomena and sometimes doesn't even realize there's something supernatural going on until it becomes plainly obvious in the physical world, that to me is like, yeah, that's a good character distinction. Like, well, adversity, but you know what I mean. That's a good character disadvantage that says something about our Kitsuki, and doesn't necessarily like super impede him, but in certain specific cases clearly would. It would be like, Kitsuki-san, can't you solve your way out of this? I'm like, I'm just here for the paycheck. So that's a lot of fun. Also, I should point out something in my character design, and something I like as both a player and a GM, is like, at some points in the writing of this, we're not going to be kind to our characters. Like, they can have rough lives. They can have bad shit going on. And you might think, oh man, Momoku, that's too awful. But no, like, it's perfect. It perfectly fits the character. So, number 11, what activity makes your character feel the most at peace? So this is kind of like philosophically, right? Like, what's the thing that you like to do in life? It's not quite your ninja, but like, what do you like to do as a hobby? How do you connect with other people? What do you do in your downtime? That's super important, especially because downtime is somewhat codified. Like, what do you do to relax? So, scrolling down to passions, and there's a lot of good ones, I think, for a character like this. Like, secrets could easily be a good one, right? Or history. Provocation could be one, wordplay. Or you could go completely out there. You could pick something like travel or tea or something. I think the way this character started and the way we've kind of described him, and especially with the way his ninja is set up, his desire, what I want this character's passion to be is curiosity, which is a fire passion. And that's just, like, okay. Like, he wants to look at the truth. He's got a genuine interest in learning and seeing new things in life. So, yeah, no, it's like, yeah, we want to learn stuff. We want to figure out stuff, right? So that's a great way to, make this character kind of like, yeah, no. Yeah, so you remove strife when you look at certain, new things or try to solve new problems or seek answers. And that'll really come up a lot. It helps you learn from failure, and in general, it really defines, I think, the outlook of the character. Like, Kitsuki's like, yeah, I want to know more about the world. I want to know the truth about stuff, even if sometimes that's weird. And so then the next is, what concern, fear, or foible most troubles your character, all right? So, like, what's the thing that gets them down or stresses them out, right? That hurts their stoic samurai facade. So we even talked about it a little bit before, but an obvious one for this stage could be kind of cynicism, kind of like, what kind of stuff, you poo-poo novel or unconventional ideas. But with curiosity as the front of that, I'm like, nah, that doesn't make any sense anymore. That doesn't work as well. So instead, I think it's easy, but it's kind of classic. What I think holds down kind of this character, right? Sorry, I was distracted by reading the funny little flavor text. Like I said, it sounds easy, but also I think it works. Let's go with painful honesty, which is an anxiety, and that's just, you don't like to lie. You don't like to tell a lie. You can't make claims to be false, so you can say technically truthful things and imply truth. They're like, you can talk around stuff, which is very much what the tenet of sincerity is supposed to be about. Like, you can phrase stuff in a polite or delicate way if you need to, or just ignore it. But like, you can't just straight out tell a lie. And if you try to, you can take strife. And that I think also perfectly, because we've talked about how this character is a little bit naive, right? Like, at least when it comes to like justice and truth and stuff like that, and the Rokugani way. So yeah. No, that's real perfect for this character, right? So it's like, you can imply untrue things, but you're like, God, no, I don't want to lie. That would be cool. It fits this character so perfectly, I think, and will very often come up as part of his ninja is the deal with truth. All right. So those are those 4 questions, 9 through 12. Hope you enjoyed that little segment of them all together. I kind of like talking about this. Like I said before, when I do this for like just writing example characters, I very frequently pick like distinction, passion, and then adversity, anxiety back to back because the sections are together. They're in that order, and then kind of like write out the details. But this way also works. Work through at your own pace. Let's talk about some more stuff. All right. So now we're at question 13. Who's your character learned from most during their life? So basically, you always got to figure out somebody at some point. Somebody had to teach you some things, whether that was just your sensei at the dojo, your parents, a close personal friend or something, like who imparted a certain amount of your beliefs and values onto you, who kind of, taught you about life. And then basically at the end, depending on the nature of this relationship, like, positive relationships might, give you advantages, or they could even give you disadvantages. But basically, either way, you get a new advantage, or you get a disadvantage, and then you get +1 skill. I'm going to tell you right now, we're taking a disadvantage and +1 skill. Because, hey, let's put some drama in here, okay? Right? That's the whole point, right? Samurai drama. We've kind of put a very positive spin on this character, so let's rough up his background a little. So I'm going to say that the person that Kitsuki has learned the most from is Miramoto, let's say, Takako. She is Miramoto Kichiro's daughter, and, she's probably, let's say she's a fellow Yorkie, so she was Kitsuki-san's senpai. He first starts his job, and she's like, all right, here's what you do on the job. And kind of like, walked him through life and, how to look after himself, how to kind of like execute on their duties in a practical manner, and kind of like taught him some real life stuff. Also, hey, you hang out a lot, some stuff happens, some more stuff happens, and maybe their relationship, gets a little closer, gets a little romantic, gets a little open. Now, normally, Dragon probably wouldn't have a problem with this, right? So long as you're kind of sincere about it. But besides being, your boss's daughter, that's always bad. Let's keep the drama going. Let's say she's married, also, and so if their relationship came out, this would be very embarrassing for both of them. Not only is it an illicit relationship and challenging of their direct duty because they're both assigned to the same thing with the same guy, right? Like it's gonna call into question a lot of stuff. Were you doing your job when you're supposed to be? A lot of those times you're solving crimes. Calls into question their judgment, calls into question their lord, right? It would be very embarrassing for everybody if it comes out. And you could even say it's an abuse of hospitality. What you doing? You coming to my household, you working with me, you're banging my daughter, upsetting her relationship, all that. Yeah, so it's Dark Secret. Dark Secret is the anxiety. So yeah, no, despite all this love for truth and justice, Kitsuki-san's got this one thing he really has to hold inside because, it's my life, right? It'd be really bad if it came out. So it's a combined with painful honesty, that and Dark Secret. That's just like, that's a great combo. I think really dramatically defines the character, right? And on the plus side, though, we get a +1 rank in any skill. And I've decided, I'm imagining that Takako's probably a duelist, a Miramoto Twin Heavens duelist. And so let's go with to bump martial arts melee to 2. So now we're really good at law stuff. And we're, really keen on the melee stuff. So, taught him to be a decent duelist, take care of himself. And, there's some other stuff. So, that's question 13, I think. So now we leave that section, and even that part, and we move on to part 5, which is personality and behavior. Discussing what they do in lots of different situations and stuff, and kind of figuring out their look and their actions. So, question number 14 is, what do people notice upon first encountering your characters? So, To me, I think Kitsuki comes off as kind of an honest and inquisitive soul. There's, you can tell this is being all done in order as I do it because I didn't edit that flub out. He tends to speak the truth. He tends to ask open and honest questions, and trying to get a feel for people. He's very observant and, very interested in what's actually going on in a situation. He will seek information and seek, especially new information and new facts, new qualities, new stuff like that. And I think that with the dragon, they don't really mind his tendency to speak the truth or to ask probing questions, but most clans, he probably comes off as nosy and even unsubtle. Scorpion probably don't get along. Actually, I know for a fact, Scorpion don't really get along with Kitsuki at all, but, they would particularly be like, ugh, this Kitsuki kid. Always asking questions, saying things plainly. No art, even though I do have air, too. But yeah, I think that's, general... How do people come across? What impression do they get? They get the impression that he's honest. Maybe they get the impression that he's a little naive. When you look at him, he has, short dark hair. Maybe a little bit of a slick back look. Probably not a full-blown professional top knot. He's a little young for that, and I know they aren't, the dragon and the Kitsuki are caught up in the formality of that sort of thing. Maybe someday he'll start to shave. Probably no facial hair. You could go for the 5 o'clock shadow look, but that's hard anyway, and people don't like that. Tends to dress plainly. Long traveling cloak. Duh. As a detective, you got to have a long coat of some kind. And Kitsuki don't really get any fancy pants stuff in their starting kit. And also, I will say that, when he's on the case, when he's on the job, he likes to jot down notes in his journal. So, some people might think that's rude. Some people might think that's diligent. That's just a thing he does. Something kind of, this could be important. I'm going to write it down later. Maybe make a sketch. It's my video game detective journal. And at this step, the most concrete aspect of question 14 is after you figure out all this stuff about kind of their expression and stuff, dark hair, darkish eyes. You could probably go for green eyes, but I'm not 100% sure on that, so we'll say darkish eyes. Rather than many people see his eyes, because, hey, here's the thing. Choose a distinctive, the book even says, aesthetic accoutrement. So, find some kind of, personal flair or something. So, I was doing some reading about some stuff, and I read in a couple of places that in the, 12th or 13th centuries, that Chinese magistrates had these, dark quartz glasses or visors they would wear over their face to hide their expression in court, so you couldn't figure out where they were looking, how they were thinking when you were giving a court case to them. And of course I'm like, fuck yeah, a detective has to have sunglasses. So our Kitsuki friend here has some dark quartz glasses, probably whipped up by the Agasha, which hide his eyes and prevent people from seeing his expression and where he's looking at any given time. So, not quite Scorpion Mask, but very much oh, we're in court, we're looking at stuff, you can't tell where I'm looking, you can't tell what I'm thinking, you can't look at my eyes kind of thing. Which, says some things about the character, and also it's just cool. And technically, probably appropriate. Because while I don't think they wouldn't have had smoked glass at this point. The unicorn did bring back a lot of glass smithing techniques, but they wouldn't have spectacles. They'd all be reading stones and stuff. But yeah, you can do some stuff with some quartz, with some alchemists. That's a lot of fun. So next is question 15. How does your character react to stressful situations? So, everybody's supposed to be all stoic and stuff, but you got some kind of situation or key points. What sets your character off, kind of. They always have a point where they'll start to feel some of that stress, some of that conflict. Some of that strife. And then when they're in these situations, what kind of emotions do they display? How do they, keep stuff on tack? Get to the bottom of this. Lots of different options. So, I think Kitsuki's response to stressful situations is to seek clarity, understanding, try and cut through barriers of social and informational nature. The things that stress him is lies and deception, lack of information, or lack of ability to understand because he doesn't have the pieces right, to him, everything is something that can be observed and that it can be, solved. And so when people or circumstances get in the way of that, he's like, that's not gonna work. And so in these cases, his curiosity, I think, will kind of like peak, and it might even push the bounds of social propriety. So he'll ask probing questions, he'll try and make new observations, look for new solutions to either get out of the situation or to put it into his control and understanding, right? Like, oh man, there's something crazy going on. I don't know what's happening. I need to find the pieces of information, observe the clues that help me put this into a context so I understand the situation and can, quote unquote, solve it, right? There's that kind of naivete, I think, bleeding through a little, the idea that you can, like, control or observe, the universe is a puzzle that has a perfect solution kind of thing. So when stuff isn't in his control or it's stopping him from gaining his control of the knowledge he needs, that would kind of, stress him out a little. Violence, whatever. We're in, dangerous situations. Oh, something, just the act of something mysterious or unknown going on, he'd be like, ooh, that's interesting. It's when he's actually blocked from getting the data he needs is probably what sets him off. And when pushed to the limit, Kitsuki probably breaks the rules of social decorum to make observations or reveal truths that's it's a little impolite to speak. So basically, the game asks you to, like, think about how this works for some of your strife. What do they do when their strife rises? What do they do when they are compromised? And like, how do they unmask? So while you can kind of work your own unmasking kind of situations, I'm thinking this is like expose an opening kind of thing, like they, or maybe inappropriate outburst. Could be either or depending on it. So either he will say something and then it'll be like, oh, you really shouldn't have said that kind of thing. Like he'll try and put things out there, or he will just straight up say, hey, there's a problem with this, right? And that'll probably reveal some stuff to him. So yeah, like, and actually I should make sure in my notes to jot that in detail, like, so yeah, so if he's pushing the limit, he might fire off with a theory or throw some facts out there to try and assert control of the situation and be like, it's not a complete theory yet, you shouldn't have said that yet. And while the discrete mechanical impacts of unmasking are cool, I also think you should be a little flexible with them, right? But still, we're here. We kind of covered that, so let's roll on into the next question. So, question 16. It's your character's pre-existing relationships with other clans, families, organizations, and traditions. This is just kind of your catch-all. Hey, what have you done with your life? Who have you met? Are you friends with any other, families, clans, etc.? Are you enemies with any of them, kind of thing? Like, what's your impression of other people? So, I'm thinking that, as Yorkie to an Emerald Magistrate, Kitsuki's probably been exposed to a fair amount of stuff. Like, the obvious, if you're a dragon, is, you've probably rubbed elbows with the Phoenix and with the Lion, of course. Maybe even the Scorpion a little bit, sometimes the Unicorn kind of stuff, because their land's kind of up there in that corner a little bit. Although, obviously, they are downlands rather than uplands for Unicorn. And, so traveling everywhere to, like, handle cross-clan difficulties. Kitsuki's probably been some places, seen some people, got some interesting impressions. I expect he's kind of neutral to the Phoenix, especially because of their more spiritual or supernatural bent, while he's like, yes, that wisdom is good. So a lot of the supernatural stuff just flies over his head. Probably, decent relationship with the Unicorn on a kind of like a generic level, but nothing specific. Kind of like, yeah, okay, they got a different, they got their own way of living life that fits perfectly with the dragon philosophy. I'll just leave them to their business. Internally in the dragon, probably have plenty of opportunity to make friends with other Kitsuki, with other Miramotos. Occasionally he's probably met a Tagashi monk, but doesn't focus much on them because they're busy. We'll say that he, works with the Agasha because they're alchemists and trying to understand a lot of this spiritual stuff, and he knows he's not good at that. So, let's in their relationships add that Kitsuki has an associate. We'll call him Shiro Agasha. Or, technically Agasha Shiro, you know what I mean? And, they are an associate of, a colleague. Maybe Kitsuki would call them a friend, but they help Kitsuki with research. And I believe that in this case, yeah, Shiro's a masculine name, so Shiro, good old Shiro. I got Shiro. Colleague is an alchemist, helps Kitsuki deal with some stuff that's more metaphysical or supernatural in nature. And kind of like, answers questions about those kinds of aspects. Maybe he's even another Yorkie to the Emerald Magistrate. Just a Dragon Emerald Magistrate and a team of dragons. Nah, probably not. It's probably not super balanced. But, that's a guy he can call on. I'm expecting a much more dramatic relationship for Kitsuki is with the Scorpion and with the Lion. Because there's some bad blood in there back and forth. Especially since, some Scorpion stuff's creeping north. So I expect that Kitsuki has kind of run into some Scorpion run territory on the trades and stuff. Like maybe he's seen the City of Lies, if not been there, had some dealings in their lands. And just generally, the Kitsuki and the Scorpion don't get along well. Probably, unless they do. I expect they don't, though, unless you're good buddies with the Kitsuki, and then you're like, okay, I just want to ask questions. Currently, our Kitsuki is young and naive, a little bit naive, like we said, so he's not good at not asking questions. So his personal relationship with the Scorpion is probably strained, but I don't think there's any specific enmity there. It's just like, gosh, these Scorpions, can't they just, what's the masks and stuff? Like, can't they just be straight sometimes? It's kind of like a personal frustration. With the Lion, though, I'm expecting that, especially with their focus on, like, honor and that sort of stuff, that again, to them, the dragon are a little weird. So their very orthodox approach to Bushido and to honor has probably caused some tensions over the years. And let's say, because I'm putting an angle here because there's a mechanical aspect of this. Let's say that since Kitsuki's actually a pretty good fighter, well, he's decent. He's got a couple points in martial arts melee. That perhaps he got into a fight with some assertions with a lion samurai. We'll call them Matsu Shun, because Matsu. And Shun can be a masculine or feminine name, I'm pretty sure. Doesn't matter right off the top of my head who it was, man or woman. It's probably a lady, though, because Matsu. And they, Kitsuki had to fight and defeat them in kind of like a brawl. Not a proper full-blown duel, but like a, what did you just say kind of thing? And my microphone. Don't worry, we'll soften that up in editing. And yeah, so just, it came to blows, and he had to kill Shun, and that's kind of like a bad thing. But they also obviously clearly violated propriety and were in the wrong. So, Shun's family and the Matsu and the Lion are not happy about this. Not like full-blown war, but like they'll remember this. Not like scorn levels, but like, if we run into this Kitsuki again, we'll be upset with him. Especially because I'm thinking that as a trophy, Kitsuki-san took the Matsu's katana because, he was banging around with wakazashis before. Now he's got a real sword that's, finally made, lion make. Real great quality stuff. And who knows, if you wanted to build plot points for future stuff, like this is me as a GM talking, if you wanted to build these future plot points to jump off of, you could introduce a whole complex backstory to this katana, like, maybe this fight started because Kitsuki observed it was a dragon-made katana that this lion was turning around, and they were like, oh, this is my trophy, kind of like back and forth, I'll take that back, kind of thing, Once again, for the purposes of this, there's no need to go into super detail, but those are just some options you could take. And now Kitsuki has a real katana, because in this step, you pick an item of rarity 7 or less that your character received as a gift, or took in battle, or otherwise, relates to their relationship. You add this to their starting outfit. I'm going to step down here. I'm going to put on my GM hat as I'm helping walk you through this, and say that this is actually a really great option. One, almost every weapon except some of the really big stuff like, Nodachi, Zambato, Naginata, those, are Daikyus 8? No, I think Daikyus are like 6. Anyway, basically, if you need a weapon for some kind of specific build reasons, totally can fit almost all of them in here. All right? It's like, I think it's Otsuchi, which is not, big warhammers. So I'll accept the biggest weapons you can fit in here. Also, another common thing I've been doing lately is, if you are a less socially oriented school and you don't have a set of ceremonial clothes, that's also a really good thing you could have had taken gotten as like a gift. There's a couple misc items you can spin, but especially with the way the traveling pack, I should say, works, that's not always really great. Like, it's not making a lot of sense. Musical instruments sure can work in there, but that's not for everybody, right? T-set works too, because those are kind of higher rarity. Those are too high to be in your traveler pack on their own. So that's a good, generic ass gift to get. Weapons I like for this are Tesson or shoot, the name of the pipe is eluding me for a second. Luckily, I got my book right here. Equipment, weapons. Kiseru, that's it. The pipe, which you can turn into an improvised club. So Tesson or Kiseru is a great choice for like a courtier or somebody who needs like another little weapon add, something concealable that you can get in there. Some armor works too, but like I said, I like the ceremonial clothes. But I didn't go that route with Kitsuki because I'm like, nah, he's the kind of guy who would be like, no, I'm just in my traveling clothes. So now we are in part 6, or we're in question 17, which is ancestry and family, and then 17 is how would your character's parent describe them? So, family's important, parental devotion is important. What kind of relationship do you have with your parents and your other close family members? Figure out kind of like, how does that work? Record the nature of your relationships, figure that sort of stuff out. And so let's think on this. What did Kitsuki's parents think about him? So let's grab a couple names, figure out some good stuff here. Let's go with Kitsuki. So Kitsuki, Akio, and Kaku are his parents. Like we said, kind of grown up and in training, while Kitsuki-san here was obviously very well-rounded, also was pretty honest and inquisitive, as members of the Kitsuki family themselves, one way or another. They probably found this kind of like, oh, it's a good sign, he's a good example of a Kitsuki. Got a great attention to detail, keen senses, always looking for stuff, figuring out the way the world works. So they probably have a fairly positive, impression of him, and kind of, how he handles things, how he relates to people and stuff. I'm imagining they are happy and proud, but not like necessarily super close parents. They're busy people. Maybe his father Akio is he's a Dragon Clan magistrate administering the law in some Dragon Clan holdings. The mother may be a courtier who goes out and does diplomatic things, kind of figure that out. So we'll say they're proud but distant, not a super tight family, but they're like, yes, son, you are upholding the reputation of our family and of our school. Good job. Sorry if I bumped the microphone a little there. I had to adjust my sitting. I've been sitting down for a long time, in case you can't tell. It's great stuff. Great stuff. And honestly, from a dramatic sense, like I'm not feeling like there's a great deep drama if Kitsuki has any other close family members like brothers and sisters. Like at the moment, that doesn't stand out, so I don't think it's important enough to like figure out and record. Maybe some siblings are in there. We could work that out later. If the GM asks me or has some ideas, that'd be good. But as I'm developing the character right now, nothing jumps out at me. So the next thing to do is to pick a skill which your character has. At 0 ranks, and determine kind of whether they approve of this interest, this additional interest, or disapprove, and kind of like how and why. So I'm looking at my skill list. I'm thinking, okay, what do we not have as Kitsuki? We got a few trade skills, which are unusual. We got lots of scholarly skills. Got a couple martial skills we could get by in a skirmish. No artisan skills and no social skills. So I think to myself, all right, what's a really good thing I should do for this character, and also kind of like spin it as like, what does Kitsuki pick up as a hobby, basically, as like, what does he practice in his spare time, and how do his parents feel about that? And I'm gonna go with courtesy, because I feel like out of the social skills, that's a pretty good skill to have, is to have courtesy, to like, be polite and frame some stuff, and Kitsuki could really use that, and he would know, gosh, sometimes I really need to be polite about this stuff if I'm gonna be revealing true facts and all that. And honestly, as courtiers and magistrates themselves, Kitsuki's parents are probably okay with that. figuring out, like, oh yeah, no, it's good. You should take a more tactful approach sometime. You should have some proper etiquette to people. Always know what you're doing. It's how you get by in life. All right, so now we're at question 18. We're almost done. 20 questions. Who is your character named to honor? So basically, like, kind of, figure out, like, because names or parts of names are usually taken by characters to kind of, like, say, hearken to them deliberately, hearken to their deeds, kind of, like, talk about that sort of stuff. What, how do you get your name? Who's it derived from, kind of stuff. And then what's your relationship with that ancestor? So, did a little bit of thinking. And obviously, also, you roll some stuff. There's a heritage table. And if you need to, you can, like, pick one. At GM's discretion, you can pick options. In this case, obviously, I didn't do that because that's not as cool. So, first of all, I'm going to say that for reasons that are going to come up in the next step, the ancestor is Kitsuki Miyu, whose name can mean, like, trust and excellence. So, a trusting sort of name, a firm basis, and that's kind of what it's going to influence Kitsuki's personal name. But then we roll kind of what they did, and so I got 1 and 10. And so I actually don't like 10 a lot, unusual name origin. Because it's either you get an item or you have to switch some of your rings, which sometimes I can see that, like, kind of helping, but a lot of times it's just like, but I got my rings where I wanted them already. And honestly, like, as a GM, I'm like, if you get a weird bum result, I'm not gonna, like, force you to change it. Like, a lot of these cases, like, where you get an extra skill or something, like, those are like, yeah, just take over the dice where they land. That can easily be good and fun. Other cases, it's like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, especially when there's items out there, which is actually what I rolled in this case. Like, that can be, like, a pain in the butt to deal with, like, especially because you've set up your character, like. Mostly, my problem is that this comes so late in the game that it's like, but I already took care of that, right? Like, it's like, well, what do you want? So I don't mind a certain amount of flexibility, and then you get a modifier, and then you roll a 10-sided die again. So I picked Famous Deed, because that's a lot better than Unusual Name Origin, and basically rolled a 10-sided die. And then, practicing what I preach, I discarded all those times I rolled a weapon, because, boy, if I had known that I was going to do that, I would have just said that he had an ancestral sword anyway, and there's no need for that whole thing with the lion, right? And obviously, for purposes of your own character, if something changes like that in character creation, you're like, well, I'll just do a few things. But obviously, because I'm recording this, right, I don't want to do that. That's not a good example, because that would change stuff that I'd already wrote out. So in this case, option 1 is Famous Deed, so they're known for something, and they've got something that's high quality. You'll increase your glory, and then so I went with Armor, which was randomly determined. So we'll say Kitsuki Miyu probably was an Emerald Magistrate of a generation or two back, maybe like a great grandmother or a grand aunt or something. Because Miyu is a feminine name, even though this character's male. Don't worry, we'll get there. That's why they're not literally also Kitsuki Miyu. And so they've got some nice, lovely lacquered armor, I think, that, a ceremonial armor that kind of, like, shows places. And the lovely green color with the dragon mon and the Kitsuki symbols, works perfectly, even if you're not an Emerald Magistrate yet. Because dragon's primary color is still green. Yay! And that also raised our glory by 3, so now we have 52 glory. It finally evened out. Because the glory can go up by... Yeah, I know. The glory stuff is weird. And so we each get to choose a quality, or you would, as the GM, you normally get to pick 2 qualities. And I'll tell you this, as a game master, because you never know when you might be hanging out with me, I don't feel like it's required to, like, screw people over with this choice. Obviously, if it makes sense, like, oh, yeah, no, you've got some damaged armor that's ancestral, right? You need to repair it. That makes sense for a character. But in cases like this, it's like, nah, there's no need for that. So normally lacquered is ceremonial, cumbersome, and war gear. And actually, just cumbersome. So cumbersome cancels out. So if I, as a player, added concealable, that would instead remove cumbersome. There's your little, shenanigansy way of doing it. Instead, let's see. What's the best path out here? So it can't be subtle, because that would cancel War Gear. I figure what we'll just do is, like, we'll say it is, resplendent, durable armor. It's well made, it's very obvious, but on the same time, because it's War Gear and resplendent, like, you're gonna be real freaking obvious. It's not a subtle thing. All right, and that would work as a character. It's like, well, you got armor now, but you can't wear it out and about town because, and it's durable armor too. It's very, very well made. But you're literally not gonna be subtle because the resplendent and subtle qualities don't overlap. You're literally not going to be subtle when you wear this ancestral armor because, duh. So yeah, I think that works for the character. It's like, because you got air too. Like, there are some times as an investigator you're gonna want to be subtle, but guess what? If you want to wear your fancy pants armor because you're possibly gonna get stabbed on your investigation, well, it's gonna make your subtlety a lot harder. However, if you get your glory while wearing your armor, that's very much a bonus. All right, let's move on to the next question. So here's kind of a nice round-out point. And I always said this was interesting earlier because it's like, question 19 is, what's your character's personal name? So this is obviously the last step, and for some people it makes sense to the last step, but also for me, like, when I'm trying to write, I'm like, God, that makes it hard to write about them because then I have to refer to them by their last name a lot. So, but yes, I've decided what the character's personal name will be and kind of like figured out the synology. So this will be Kitsuki Makoto, which means sincerity. It's literally the name of the Bushido tenet. Sincerity is it's the character that's used. And so I figure Makoto can be a unisex name. And, it's got a similar phonetic structure, but not quite the same. Not quite the same meaning as, like, Miyu, because there's trust in there, but they're both, like, M sounds. They're similar, and they convey similar concepts. So it's like, yeah, I'm not, obviously, because that would be a fully feminine name. So, yeah, I'm not Miyu, I'm Makoto. I'm about the sincerity. It's my deal. And so that's I think a perfect encapsulation. Yeah, no, that's a Kitsuki as fuck name. Calling yourself after the tenet of sincerity. And if you ever get famous or you ever become paragon of Bushido, there's your perfect task to pick up. But otherwise, this one's very short. Like, I have some name lists of some, like, very appropriate names and some of their meanings or meaning combinations. And obviously, you can just pick whatever. And you can probably even in mainline clans, you can probably get away with a few Chinese names here and there. And obviously, if you're unicorn, you can sneak in some other names, or maybe even some Japanified versions of other names in the unicorn. All right, there's only one question left, guys. Let's go ahead and get it out of the way. And of course, one of my favorite questions in the 20 questions. Actually, I think it's straight up my favorite question in the 20 questions. Part 7, death. Question 20, how should your character die? This is just a thing that I think perfectly encapsulates L5R, right? Like, the fact that this is the final question you got to think about your character. You have to think about it. Like, what's your move here? How do you envision your character dying? Like, how should they die? And a lot of, like, metaphysical concept, because death is very integral to this sort of genre. So I'm thinking what Kitsuki Makoto plans on doing is he would love to reach a ripe old age as a magistrate, as whether an emerald magistrate or what, and then he would love to retire to be a monk and finally get a handle on this spiritual nonsense and seek enlightenment and maybe maybe that would mean another reincarnation, or maybe that would mean they get to join their ancestors in Yomi. Maybe he's not really thinking about that right now, but he would like to reach that point in his life where he can retire, settle down, and focus purely on the spiritual matters. As his prospective player, as the person writing this character, that's not how I think this is going to happen. No, this might be a little cliche, but as a Kitsuki investigator, what's actually going to get Kitsuki, it's not going to be that gentle, I'm going to live till I'm 80 in retirement and die peacefully in my sleep meditating or something. No, he's probably, like I said, it's a little cliche, but he's probably going to get stabbed by something he never saw coming. Like, some action or some enemy or some choice he's going to make is he's going to think he's doing it to get to the truth, or it's going to serve the Emperor's justice or whatever. It's going to be following one of his major big two things, Giri or Ninjo. And it's just, there's going to be something that's going to come up, and whether it's a mystical thing or whether it's just he wasn't looking at it right, and it's going to get him. It's going to get him one of those times, right? Like, you can't be perfect every time. Sometimes you're going to go over that waterfall. That's a deep literary reference, ladies and gentlemen. So, yeah, that's how Kitsuki should die. And that is it. We've answered the whole 20 questions. We have a complete starting character for The Legend of the Five Rings RPG by Fantasy Flight Games. You know, we walk through their background, their history, kind of what defines them, what's good about them, what's bad about them, all kinds of fun stuff like that. You know, got some skills. We got a decent character who can do some investigative stuff. And especially for lots of typical, you know, campaign setups, would fit in lots of different places in lots of different ways. Depending on how much you know about a campaign going in, I think that's a good approach to have, is to build characters with more general goals and duties, so you can be like, I can slot it anywhere, you know, especially if you're going to do kind of like more open-ended campaigns where you might have multiple story arcs and stuff that aren't even necessarily connected. So there's a lot of stuff here that, you know, you could work on. And yeah, hopefully there was plenty of advice and examples in there you need. If you got any questions, you can go ahead and ask me them in the comments and stuff, and I'll clarify some decisions or maybe some technical parts you don't understand. In general, this was a lot of fun. I was sitting on this idea for a while, and it was good to do. It was a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be. I was thinking maybe somewhere under an hour. Now we're slightly over an hour as we do this outro, and now it is the outro because it's the end. Also, both in the audio format, because I'm going to post this as an audio snippet to our patrons, so you can download just the raw audio and listen to me talk for a while. And also in the YouTube video version, which will have some helpful graphics. I had my you can hear right there, there's my note card, my literal note card, to let me do graphic packages and whatnot. So that'll be in the description for the YouTube video, where you could have followed along at points, thought about your own things. So hopefully this helps players make characters like my players in future, because we're going to play this damn game. I'll fight you. I'll wrestle you. I'll wrestle you for it. But kind of like a walk through all the aspects. And, if you want more L5R content on the channel, let me know. I feel like that's a good end point to the video here. So, I guess we'll do a usual outro. If you like this video, give it a like. That's super important, especially for this kind of like experimental content we're doing. Obviously, if you have any comments or anything, leave those in the comment section down below. You can also get a hold of our Discord. And the link will be in the description. Also, subscribe if you're new here and you haven't already. And even if you are subscribed, get that bell for notifications, so, you know, you can always get a little alert when we post something new. You know, because our posting schedule can be erratic sometimes. And like it said at the front of the show, and also just now, consider supporting us on Patreon. Like I said, this is available as like a little early audio download for just audio consumers for just $1 a month, real low level. And also at higher levels, you can get access to stuff early. You can listen into stuff. Now that I think about it, I could have streamed this to people. Maybe we'll do another one. Let me know if people will be interested in that more interactive kind of building stuff. Or what other kinds of content you would want that have an L5R theme. Like, I could do like lore stuff. I could do more technical and mechanic stuff. We could do some demos and stuff. You know, maybe I can grab Lucky in the afternoon and we can run some examples. Just let me know. And I will see you in the next video. And usually I come up with like a cute outro or whatever for these, but this is new, so I don't know what my catchphrase for L5R type videos will be. You know, I'm trying to think of something that's not like possibly terrible out of context that YouTube might get angry at me for, and I'm not really doing it. So just see you next time, fellow samurai.